Hello, YouTubers. Welcome back to the channel. Just a quick update for what's going forward in the coming year. And also, the last few months, I haven't really been uploading, or I haven't been uploading. Just been taking a break from social media and everything, and also been busy with work, changing jobs and stuff. And the plan for the coming year is, as the thumbnail of the video says, it's well done is better than well said. And the point behind that is that I think now it really is a time for action rather than talking in the world. And I actually woke up in 2012. And then from there, it was only like a year or two after that. I remember I started an Instagram, like an anonymous Instagram, trying to spread awakening message. And that was probably been about 10 to 12 years doing that. Or I stopped doing Instagram after a few years. And then obviously I did some other stuff and then moved into YouTube. And I think it served a purpose and it still does serve a purpose for people spreading the word. But now is the time of action and we need action rather than just talk. Because if you look on like my YouTube and everybody, a lot of others, it's a lot of talking and getting a community and, subscribe to my Substack and Patreon and all of this stuff. And I think some people can get blindsided by they realize, oh, I've got a bit of a following or they have a plan where I think if I can get this amount of members and if I can get all these super chats and this community and a Patreon and people join my channel for a five a month and subscribe to my Substack and all this stuff, they start getting blinded by the money they can make rather than actually making real world change. And that's my goal. I'm not interested in making money. My interest is in making change in the world for good. And as I said, don't get me wrong, there is a place for talking, but now is the time for action. And what do I mean by action? I mean setting up organizations or movements that actually make real world change. I mean, if you look at, for example, politically, people have been moaning about the state of the country and the world, and that's talking. But look at someone like Donald Trump. He took action and took on the establishment. Whether you believe he's the answer or not, he took action. And I believe he is part of the answer, but he's not the answer. Christ and the Spirit and the Father will be, or it is the answer, and they will lead us to the promised land. But I believe that Donald Trump and Elon Musk and these sort of peoples, they are the warriors who are making way for the people of Christ to do their work. So some people can get frustrated with Elon Musk or Trump because they're not doing the exact thing, but that's not their job. The job and the answer is Christ and the Father and tradition. And Trump and Elon Musk are just making way and giving us the freedom. For an example, Donald Trump is good because we won't be under communist rule and that we can still do our work for Christ. And Elon Musk is good, not because he's the answer, but because he purchased X. He's given us a bit more freedom and time to get the message out. So going forward into this year, that has been my plan. I've been working and thinking of ideas of what can I do. And essentially, my idea is I was looking at the Church of England. I was thinking the answer to our problems essentially is God, is Christ, and traditional values. And traditional values are spiritual values, not your traditional conservative Christian. That's not tradition. The world of tradition is being aligned with God and living your spirit or living by His spiritual truth. The way that Christ did. Tradition is not being a conservative Christian and reading the Bible or reading the Quran or stuff. That's our modern view of tradition. But as I say, traditional values would be living in God's grace, being spiritually reborn, not religious, and living by values to your and duty to your society rather than chasing the flesh. So you get married, you have a wife and children, and then you have a duty to your Father God, to Christ, the Spirit, to your wife, to your country, and to your children. And you stand by that, and you have your commitment is to tradition. Rather than in our modern world, we're obsessed with materialism and the flesh. So people will get married, but then they get divorced because a beautiful woman comes along and they chase their physical desires rather than being committed and having traditional values and duty to those values. That's why the whole when you get married, you take your vows. But people they're just empty words. People don't follow through with their vows. They just they go along with it because that's what you're supposed to do. And another thing is that if you're born into any country in the world, you have a duty to serve your country and your community. You don't become a world citizen and abandon your country. This modern idea of, I want to travel the world and go and live by the sun or do this, do that, chase money. That's part of modernity. Whereas in tradition, wherever you're born, you'll have a duty to serve your country. And I think we all know that deep down, because even all the people, like, I'm English and I see all these people leaving England, but I have a duty. I was born here to serve my country. And all these people coming on the boats from Syria and all these places, they've abandoned tradition because they're chasing money. And when they get here, they know that because they're in our capital city, waving their Pakistani flag, waving their Syrian flag, waving the Palestinian flag, because they will never escape the fact that they're born from that country. Just because they're living in Britain doesn't make them British. And what they need to do is go back to their countries and serve their countries. And the fact that they've abandoned their women and children to chase materialistic free benefits in our country shows that they're not traditional spiritual servants of God. They're serving evil. So that clarifies what the world of tradition means. And as I say, the church is supposed to stand for that, but it doesn't. But Christ stands for that. So my idea is, instead of having the Church of England, to start the Christ of England. So that'll be an organization to serve England through the Spirit of Christ rather than through the false religion. So we would represent Christ rather than the Pharisees. Because the Church of England, I mean, nothing in England, there is no hope really in England, because the king is corrupt, the politicians, all the political parties are corrupt. Reform don't have what it takes. People are getting excited, but Nigel Farage is out here, bowing down to Islam, not having the courage to do what needs to be done. And there is no hope, but the hope is Christ, in Christ and the Father. That's why the answer is that. And the Christ of England can be that. And that's why I want to set that up and get actual movement going, get people donating. And not just that, I'll go to all these corrupt organizations, expose them, and demand that they donate to us at the Christ of England, and then use that money to serve the British people. And also, for an example, people who invest their money, instead of paying taxes to the government, they can donate to the Christ of England. I was looking at it because I'm interested in Bitcoin. I look at how to pay as least tax possible. And one thing you can do is donate to charity. So instead of selling all your assets, you would work out how much tax you'll pay. And then instead of selling your assets and paying the tax, you work out how much it is. So if you've got £2,000 in Bitcoin that you have to pay tax in, if you sell it, you just donate 0.0015 or whatever it is Bitcoin to the charity. And then we can use that money for serving Christ. So instead of giving it to the corrupt government who use it for illegals to go in hotels, to use it for dodgy wars in Ukraine, to use it for net zero scams to make people poor, we'll use it for righteousness for the Christ of England. And eventually we'll get people not paying taxes in their jobs, not paying taxes to the government, not paying money to the BBC, not paying money to Sky, pay it to the Christ of England, and we'll use it with our partners for good. And 100% of the money will be used for charitable purposes. Not like most charities these days where they set up a charity and you realize that only like 15% of the money is used for the charity. A lot of it is for the director, the CEO, the employees, and it just becomes a giant money making scheme, and they get lax, just like the church. The priest, the pastor, they're earning plenty of money doing what they do, and they become slack and lazy. Okay, so that's basically my plan. And I already have a YouTube channel and I've converted it to Christ of England. So if you subscribe to that, I'll put a link in the description. Subscribe to that channel because I'll be posting videos on there as well going forward for everything only to do with the Christ of England. And I'll post a few videos going forward here as well, obviously. But for the next 3 weeks, I have a couple of weeks off work and I'm planning on doing a nice long fast before I get going hardcore with the work. So it may be a bit slow over the next 3 weeks or so, but once February hits is when I'm going to really step it up and get working, spreading the word as much as possible. And I do believe that it can work out well because people are fed up and people want answers. And when they see that there's something working towards good and taking action, and it is with Christ and it is for England and the people, then I can see a vision and a way forward how we can really, really grow it and get it massive. And more importantly, it is the answer. The answer is Christ and the Father and a spiritual revolution and a return to tradition and spiritual values and meaning and purpose rather than modernity, relying on politicians and the dodgy church who don't know what they're talking about. And, modern liberal progressive values that are causing destruction and decadence in our society. Okay, so that's just a quick update for everybody. I hope everybody is well. As I say, stay tuned for more. I'll probably post a few more videos this week, so I've got a bit of spare time. But as I say, February is when I'm really going to step it up, and especially with the Christ of England. So if you go into the description, subscribe to that channel. I know there's not many subscribers now, but if you can, subscribe to it. And also, eventually forward, I want to do Europe for Christ, European Union for Christ, and a world community for Christ. So it'll be Christ for England, Christ for Europe, and Christ for the world. And once Europeans and people see how good the Christ of England doing, then we can do it for the world, hopefully. Okay, that's the vision. Whatever happens, happens. Whether it works, it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. As long as we are serving Christ the Father, uh, whatever happens, happens. It's in God's hands, and we'll leave it at that. For now, God bless everyone, and goodbye.